Yeah, so on your left, this incredible team. I was just telling Connie how when I'm an audience member experiencing this film for the first time, I like the credits to metabolize all of the emotion and just feel my feelings. So I hope you got to do that. I'm going to do brief introductions from my right to left, and then we're going to get into some conversation, and I'm going to try my hardest to leave time for you all at the end, if that sounds good. And I'm Issa again, by the way, and yeah, I don't matter as much, so let's...
You matter.
Okay, thanks. Let me not reproduce the theme of the film. Okay, so who doesn't need any further introduction? Connie, aka MILCK, musician and subject of the film. And then we have Yuri, who's the filmmaker. We have Miley in the middle right here, executive producer. And to I'm like, what is it, left, right? Grace Lee, the incredible, in the middle, Grace Lee, executive producer. And then at the very end, if you could wave Anna from P&G Studios. So I have to say, I was talking to Miley before the film, and one of the things that came up was the way that the filmmaking process nowadays, or in this case, really like mirrors the power of the themes of the film. This is clearly an all-women production, which is like really incredible and not cosmetic and very intentional. So I'm kind of curious if some of you could speak to like, how did this project come together? All this is seems like a very intentional crew of people. And I wonder if you could start and tell us a little about how P&G Studios got involved and what was so meaningful and important about investing in this specific film.
Yeah, wonderful. And what an incredible celebration. I'm still recovering from all the goosebumps I got during the screening. But at P&G Studios, we endeavor to tell stories that are kind of untold, especially through the lens of diverse creators. And we have had an incredible, storied, wonderful history with Connie. At the time that Alma Harrell, who was a filmmaker who captured that wonderful video of Quiet at the Women's March, came to us, and as we were working on our Olympic campaign over Love Over Bias, and MILCK scored the entire thing for us, and it was just incredible and another goosebump moment. So when the opportunity came forward to help support the story that will do so much good for so many people, we couldn't pass up the opportunity, and we just are so honored by the privilege to help support the story, and just so many talented hands that went into the craftsmanship behind it, but thank you for that honor.
Thanks, Anna. And then Connie, can you speak to, what was the impetus for you to make this story into a film? Like, there's so many thoughtful layers. I feel like this film does so much justice to nuance and the complexity of like intersectional identities, but then the experience of losing, finding our voice, and like that was so refreshing to see in the film. So I'm curious, like, why make it a film?
Great question. I think this all starts with an audacious question that we all have the power to ask ourselves is like, is my story, do I matter? Like kind of bringing it back, does my story matter? Is it worth being told? And actually, one of my dear friends, Krista, Korean and Chinese American, she invented the pussy hats, the pink hats that you saw everywhere in that whole film. And we were already originally friends, and we both are Asian American women that created really viral moments for the Women's March. And that's not like a told story. And so it started with that question. And so Miley's been supporting my career as I've been navigating in and out of different industries and labels and stuff like that. And she's always seen like my efforts in trying to just do better and try to tell things authentically with love and care. And so I said, is this worth telling? And I knew I had to pass and volley that to her because I knew you would be a champion. And then she helped champion as I met Grace Lee on a panel, and I audaciously asked Grace Lee for advice on, is this a story worth being told? And then we brought in Yuri, who was producing, and I'll let you tell your side of it, but the project started evolving, and then Yuri just emerged from the ashes like a phoenix as our director, the one who could help carry this story all the way to the finish line. Because amidst this, I had moments of like, who cares? Who cares about this? Like, who cares? And mine would be like, all right, like, you know, we're doing this. It's not, the train is going. And I think it's like really important, especially in this really exciting time as the Asian American Revolution continues, the Renaissance continues. It's been bubbling for centuries, and now it's starting to simmer, and the surface of the water is bubbling. It's important for us to really encourage each other to have the audacity to perhaps wonder if we matter, and to actually have friends and community hold us accountable to tell our stories, because it will heal us, which will help heal our communities.
Absolutely, yeah. Some people want to clap. I think you should clap. Before I ask Gracie and Yuri to answer, I think why I'm asking this question is just what you said. I think it's so easy to feel isolated right now in making things, and sometimes you do have the courage in a moment, and then that moment turns into doubt. And I think you have such a generosity in asking that help, or it's not for help, it's asking like, do I matter? Which I think intimately understands the need and imperative for collaboration and for, like the community to carry you through. And so I just really love that you emphasized that, and that you so clearly carry that in your art practice and your life practice, which I think are so symbiotic. But I'd love to hear from Grace Lee and Yuri, what about this story, in whatever form you first encountered it, felt important for you?
Okay. Well, I mean, first it's the song. I think it's hard to deny the power of the song. But then the very first Grace was like, you have to talk to Miley and Connie. It's like, okay. So I'm like in the middle of the pandemic, and I get on the phone, and it's like within 6 minutes I'm crying, just from Connie explaining kind of what you saw, right? Like, this was what happened, and there's this and this, and not feeling enough, and and so I'm not sobbing, but I'm Asian American female insecurity, so it was very clear that we needed, that there was something there, and that we had to pursue figuring out what that was. I love that.
I mean, I think I remember seeing the song go viral. I didn't know who Connie was, and then we ended up on a panel together over Zoom during the pandemic, and I was really excited to be there with her, and we sort of struck up conversation afterwards, and I everything about Connie as an independent artist, as an Asian American woman, just speaking boldly, truth to power, confronting all of the things that are messy about creative process, I thought was really engaging. And the other person that I always collaborate with is Yuri. Yuri I've been working with since I made the film American Revolutionary. Yuri came on as an associate producer, and I've always just been, I don't do anything without Yuri as a producer. So Yuri, we gotta do this. And then in the process, I think meeting everybody, the whole team, the themes that were coming out about creatively acknowledging people for their work, I think was really important. It took longer than we thought to make this film, and so Yuri really was the one that was just barreling through, and I'm so happy that she's, Yuri is brilliant and hasn't had a directing opportunity since her student short film, so I just felt this is really what's the word, serendipity, that it all came together this way.
Mm-hmm. That's incredible. It feels like this song really gave birth to all of us finding our own. I'm including me in it. As the ghost executive producer, it gave everyone sometimes we all need a reason to click into art and lock into the roles that we're meant to play beyond the projects. And then Miley, can we end on you? What did you see that made you want to champion it?
Well, first I just want to acknowledge everyone, because we did get on the phone, and I was kind of nudging that that Connie's unique and individual story was, so many of the themes were universal and would be of service, which is what her whole life is about and what we are about. and that we really have the opportunity because of the universality of these themes to really touch people and move people and inspire people to ask themselves all the questions that Connie kind of grapples with in the film. But I'm not a filmmaker, I'm a social change advocate for 30 years, and so I was new to this and to be on the phone with Grace, and I remember Connie saying, I'm kind of scared to do this, and Grace is like, well, that's the reason why you have to do it then, ladies. And it was like just that, like that was just enough from someone like Grace to be like, okay, we're doing this.
Yeah.
And then Yuri to go through this experience with Yuri and to see, you know, kind of mentor and protege in a way, and to see Grace's sort of reverence for Yuri as a producer, but then to see how quickly she was able to sort of create space for Yuri creatively and then credit-wise. So we hired Grace to be the director of this film. And then through this process, Grace said, you know what, I'm more comfortable if I'm an EP, and I really believe that Yuri should be the director. And then Yuri had her moment like Connie had of like, I don't think so. And so like the sisterhood on this panel of our own parallel process mirroring the themes that the song is about and the story about was really significant, and I think life-changing. I think there's kind of a before and after for this project for all of us. Like this really has changed all of our lives. I know it's changed mine. And so why this project? I've known Connie for a long time, and what I've learned about art, and specifically for me about music, is that it has the ability to touch us as human beings in this really deep place in our souls where I believe empathy lives. And so I have seen the power that music has as an art form and expression to really change hearts and minds, to make change happen. So that's a part of it. And then it's Connie. It's I've watched Connie struggle for a long time, have to create space and to literally write herself into existence, because those spaces have not had to exist. And I understood very clearly from the beginning my privilege as a white woman in this project and in her life, the proximity I had to resources in PNG, and how I could play a unique role in this project, and then how Connie's bravery and courage in putting herself out there and being vulnerable, that really inspired me to be courageous and brave, because I was scared. I was scared as a white woman to come into this, to tell the story of an Asian woman and be a part of this in a way that I wouldn't do harm, that I wouldn't say the wrong thing, that I wouldn't do the wrong thing. And I had to push through that a lot of times to find my place and my voice and be okay with that, and let go of a lot of guilt and shame and just all the other shit that we carry, and do it anyway. And so I just feel so humbled and grateful and privileged, and there is something divine about this song. It came from somewhere through Connie to bless the world and continues to bless all of us, and is just this kind of force and being in and of itself that continues to guide this project. So I'm just so grateful for everyone on this stage and for the opportunity to be a part of this in any way.
That was really profound. Yeah, let's show all these amazing filmmakers and creators tomorrow. And for the filmmakers in the room and the artists, you know, really thinking about who do you want to collaborate with and understanding the power of that process and decision and taking it very seriously as an act of taking your work seriously. So speaking to these themes of camaraderie and accountability, one of my favorite things about this film is the very intentional decision, I would imagine, to keep this rupture and repair with Adrian or AG. And so I'm really curious about, was that like an executive producer, like collective decision? Was that really important to you, Connie, to like show, you know, the kind of the transparency that we don't often see, and the vulnerability of, yeah, I'm not perfect and I'm learning as I'm growing. And really, like, I think I saw AG was also a producer, right? So that was really moving to me. And I want to acknowledge that was really powerful as an audience member and viewer to see you just like put that in the story. and not do it with a lot of defensiveness. Like I felt a lot of self-compassion and accountability. So if you could speak to what that decision was like for you and why you kept it in, why was it a storyline?
So this whole thing was so collective in all our decision making. I think I'm really inspired by this. It's gonna get to the answer, but I'm inspired by this dominatrix who teaches classes about asserting your own power and understanding power and all that. And I joke to myself is like my life is a little better when I just let life dom me and I just submit and I just admit in these moments like, all right, this is the card I was dealt and this is how I played the card and these are the results of that, and that's another metaphor that I'd throw in there, just dominatrix and card playing. But I think that I think we're in an era of if we zoom all the way out, we're in this age of the feminine divine really strengthening in ways that may seem slow, but it's really powerful. And when there are high and potent times of oppression with certain power structures, the work of the feminine divine, regardless of gender, is rising from the edges. And one of the aspects of that work is shadow work, which is embracing one's shadow and embracing one's darkness in order to fully integrate and become whole. And so when we can all individually become whole, then our society can become a more holistic environment for each other to forgive and to hold accountability. I want this story to normalize, and I want people to understand, on the other side of that really uncomfortable conversation is love, is beauty, is orchestra, and it's possible. And sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And you just let life dom you, but there is a chance for that orchestra. And I think it was very apparent to me that that tension I would just have to accept however people perceived it. And I'm curious what you all thought.
Okay. Yeah.
It looks like you're about to break out in harmony.
You're like, I'm not this vocalist. I think that a comedian. Because it's so much about finding your voice and losing your voice, and it's it could have just been it went viral, woo, thing. And that's it's a straightforward story. But it's I think the reason why people cry and respond is because of that moment, and so it was incredibly critical. I think it's also why the film took a long time, because trying to express a person's internal journey is hard to visualize. So I think it's that dip is crucial to why the film has the impact that it is.
Yeah, I would say so. The real backstory of this is that it was supposed to be an 8 to 12 minute branded content piece to commemorate the anniversary of the Women's March. That's what P&G signed up for. That's what Grace signed up for. And then we were coming out of the pandemic. So this awareness that Connie was finding her reconciling her blind spots, this is happening in real time, as it does with docs, right? The story was starting to really reveal itself. And so that's one of the things that I think really mirrors the theme of all of this around trust. We just trusted that the story was emerging and that there was a story that we all kind of had to just surrender a little bit to let the story be told. And we went back to P&G and said, we believe there's a deeper story. This is what we think it is. We filled them in and they trusted us to know that it was going to take a lot more time. It was going to take a lot more resources. And keep in mind, at the time that we did this, Connie and AG did not own Quiet. Atlantic owned Quiet. We did not have the ability when we made this for Connie to re-record this. There was a probability she could re-record it, but actually couldn't use her voice to actually sing the song when we did this. So even though Connie was signed to Atlantic, and by the time we did this left Atlantic,
legally they had no reason to say yes. So Connie went back to Julie Greenwald and we asked permission to allow AG and Connie to reclaim this song for the sole purpose of the documentary. And then while we've made this, the legal ownership of the song has expired just. So now, after reclaiming it, Connie and AG have the opportunity to release this song. We're reclaiming the song, there's so many levels to that, because there's also legal pieces, and there's also like very literal reclamation that needs to happen. I do want to also touch on like the racial structure part and the racial capitalism aspect, where like in my view, this is just my opinion, I do feel like there's a way in which, you know, the media and I don't want to say like, you know, this external force only, because it lives in us, and we all know that on this panel, but I think there is a way in which like our pain is getting like exploited and repackaged and commodified back to us as entertainment. And like with all these like political and social movements, the press does want a more palatable story, right? So they want a charismatic individual to like zero in on and kind of reduce the complexity and some of the, not anonymity, but the collectivism that really makes these movements possible. And I was really, again, just so moved by the way you talk about that and confront that. And like, just to finish giving you the flowers about it, I think sometimes there's also like a white people and whiteness see me, and like, there's this anger that's really like wise in a way, but also sets up this other binary of like, I need your permission to have a voice and to create. And I think to me personally, that's felt really exhausting, because I'm like, I feel okay about myself. Like, I don't really like need the white power structure to be like, Issa, yay, you know, like I did when I was 13, and that was a righteous 13-year-old me. But at 36, I'm like, I'm good. Like, I want Grace Lee and you're, you know, I want different types of people to be affirmed in that. And so I'm kind of curious, like, what lessons have you learned with all of this like experience and perspective about navigating publicness and integrity? Like, I know it's a big question, but like how, yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of artists in here who like yearn for that kind of success. Like what did you learn about the boundaries and what opportunities are like important to seize, and which are moments that I need to trust myself and like my no is powerful.
What a wonderful series of thoughts and questions. There was I think it was a tarot card. There's a tarot card that said, my magnum opus is not one particular piece of art that is like phenomenal or huge. My magnum opus is the relationship that I build with my art, which is the relationship that I build with me, with spirit, source, whatever people relate with. And so that is a really huge like shift for me. I defied the family expectations of doing it a career. There's a really strong hope for me to become a certain type of professional in this world, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. When I embarked on music, I had this chip on my shoulder, like I need to prove to them that I made the right call, which then led me to choose outcome related choices so that I'm like, see,
Yeah, totally.
and that was a detriment to my art. Once I learned to let go and realize that it's just about being alive and learning and being free, then everything kind of opened up, everything shifted. So I think the good news is that if we can let go, it's a hard one, but once we realize it's just like, it's such a long game, like life is long. Like if we look at that, it's kind of just like our shoulders easing and kind of going forward that way. And then I think this documentary is a really good exercise, and I'm so grateful and proud to be with these women on stage, is that they allowed me to be whole, or I allowed myself to be whole, and they witnessed me and celebrated my wholeness. My flaws, my mistakes, my strengths, all the things. And I just wish that for all artists, because then if we can just accept that we're gonna feel shame along the way, we're gonna have these mistakes, we're gonna feel joy, we're gonna doubt, all of it is going to happen. There's no avoiding any of it. And if we just accept that, again, letting life dom.
Are you a Scorpio rising?
No, I'm not. I'm a Cancer rising, actually.
Close.
then it's like, then we can actually do a lot more, because we're gonna be okay, you know, as I tell myself that every day, and then somehow I'm still here, so, yeah.
I feel like that answer felt like a warm hug.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah. I'm a heady bee, so that was really helpful.
I used to be super heady too.
Yeah.
It's a journey going from like here
To
to all the way here, especially being a survivor. I was like, oh, I have a body. Like, I
Yeah.
totally disassociated from it, and oh, I have like a heart and I've got an instinct, rage, anger, passion. I have all those things, and I'm still getting to know those sides of me more, and I like envision Asian Americans just being fully in all those feelings, and we're headed there. It's already happening. I see it every day. I see more and more of it. It's really exciting.
That's a really powerful answer. Thank you, Connie. Does anyone else want to respond to that on the team around my like multi-Russian doll question of racial capitalism?
Cool.
Anyone? Was that a hit?
I think, great questions, by the way. I feel like, you know, just this journey of being like independent artists, like choosing to be independent is really critical. And shout out to CAAMFest. I mean, it's spaces like CAAMFest where, you know, you understand that you have an audience, you have people who want to hear these stories and see these stories. And, you know, CAAM has been part of my life for like ever since I wanted to be making films. And I think that knowing that there's, you know, people in this room like Twee and Dawn and Sapna and, you know, people who are supporting this kind of storytelling is part of, you know, just not just pursuing like a creative process, but also doing it in community is really critical. And I think that's what I've had with Yuri, that's what I've had with this team, and I think that's what's really critical in this moment.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Grace. Anyone else?
I was just gonna build, I mean, I was telling Connie beforehand, I feel like every time I watch the film, I get a new takeaway, and to me, I just loved the vulnerability shown by you, Connie, throughout the film, and that we're human, and we need to give ourselves grace, and we're all going to have blind spots. I think the ownership that you took on your blind spots, that's really where we're going to see change, and something positive come out of it. So I just love that message that, you know, it's okay, and we'll move forward from it.
Yeah, that's so true and beautiful. I've been talking a lot, and we are almost at time. I mean, but that was what I was paid to do here, so I'm not, you know. But I do want maybe like one audience question, if you have one, and I'm gonna have to figure out how to choose that person in a fair way. It probably won't be. Does anyone have a question? We're gonna sit in this silence.
I think they just want a performance.
Okay, well, we're gonna ask one more question, and then we're gonna say thank yous, and then, yeah, you have to stay for Connie's performance. One of the things that we have to talk about before we transition is the music, because that is, you know, such a central part of the film. It's almost like you're watching an exquisite film and a really moving live performance, and it's all kind of like braided together really masterfully. But I want from your own words, Connie, like I think music, in my estimation, it alchemizes a lot of the pain and emotion into something like medicine. I don't know it's not always medicine, but how does that sit for you? Like how does like music, you know, what is that journey even like today in terms of the alchemy process of it?
I'll do a short answer because I'd love to hear from anyone else too that like wants to talk about music and alchemy. I'll just like volley that. But for me, like I need to have music in my life because it helps me process really difficult things. And music is so beautiful because it is body and heart. And I think as I've been integrating, becoming more whole, my music's becoming more whole as well. So it's all a reflection, and I use music as a tool to write myself into existence. So if I'm, you know, Quiet is a very like aspirational song. Like it's always consistently teaching me how to be braver. But I'm curious also like how you all felt like, yeah, with the music in the film and the alchemy.
Yeah, Yuri, it's on you.
I think, like I said, like an internal journey is very hard to visualize, so I think the music is really what helps create those moments. And so like just really delving into the catalog and all the lyrics and like early career stuff, later career stuff, and it would just be like, she just dropped this song. It's like, okay, let's try that song. Like, yeah, no, that's not it. Like, oh, she just dropped this song. Okay, okay, that one's work. You know, so it's like Metamorphosis was like the last one on the piano that made it into the doc, and it was actually a different song before. So it was so critical in terms of guiding us through an emotional journey, and you know, like even just like so granular. Miley and I are like looking up the lyrics and being like, did we get that right? It's like, no, we want like this verse, not this verse. You know, like we need this 3-phrase piece, not this phrase. You know, so
Super
it was
intentional.
yeah, everything was very like poured over in terms of the music and lyrics and the transitions, and I was just like, wait, okay, I need one more piano note. Can she play a piano note that I could like, you know, make this edit properly? You know, like it was that like just so precise in terms of what we wanted.
Well, major props, because then you're like executive producers and musical supervisors, which is, no, for real, that's amazing.
And fangirls.
And fangirls, the hardest job. Well, I know we need to get to the music, because I think that is a big reason why we're all here. And I just want to say, Major, if we can just start clapping for this incredible panel, the men's part and talent. We need to show maximum love to all of the camp staff, all the volunteers,
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna invite my my longtime friend Ben up on stage, and we're gonna share a few songs. So I'd love if you all could stay and we'll have some musical time, some multi-sensory project.
You're in for such a treat. So we're gonna strike the stage and it'll be moments. But thank you all.
Thank you.